Because otherwise, he might have tried to Because otherwise, he might have tried to Because otherwise, he might have tried to fuck me. And lucky for me, it ended up being in the form of his movies because I took the job in the cinema and not one in housekeeping. Otherwise, he might have tried to fuck me. Back in 1985, I snuck into the movie theater I would eventually work in as a responsible teenager so I could watch Arnold Schwarzenegger invent Liam Neeson's Taken movies. And for 90 straight minutes, I was as glued to the screen as I was to the nasty 1980s shopping mall cinema seat. I just couldn't get enough of watching Arnold track down and destroy the big scary man that had taken his daughter, who also happened to be my future wife at the time, Alyssa Milano. I said at the time. Trust me, I figured that one out by the time I hit 13. And then again when I hit 22. Oh, so you've never gotten back together with one of your exes for 3 or 4 minutes. I come from a family of bodybuilders, and one of my uncles actually competed against Arnold in the Mr. Universe back when the world was still all black and white. I was young and rather impressionable when Commando came out, so Arnold was probably destined to end up in my life in some way, shape, or form as a result of all this. And lucky for me, it ended up being in the form of his movies because I took the job in the cinema and not one in housekeeping. Otherwise, he might have tried to fuck me. In case you hadn't noticed, I matched my watch to the lighting, so hit the like button.
Reward my efforts.
When they announced Predator, I was very young, but I had been properly hooked on horror movies since I was about 6, after a family member babysat me with a VHS copy of Rosemary's Baby while he was out parading the streets with some blonde floozy named Denise, who went on to become my aunt and is still my aunt. Hi, Denise. As I'm sure you can imagine, for young me as a fan of horror movies and of Arnold, Predator felt a bit like all the stars were lining up just for me. And I mean the real, celestial, beautiful stars, not the vapid, hollowed-out ones that are gradually destroying Hollywood from the inside with their smelly attitudes. And after sneaking back into the same theater again, this time with testosterone levels rivaling half of the cast due to my tender age, I got my first proper taste of salty, sweaty manhood and masculinity. And as somebody that grew up without a father, it was fucking brilliant. As you might be able to relate, my YouTube feed has been spilling over for the last few days with people arguing about Dan Trachtenberg's latest Predator movie, Badlands. The argument seems to be split pretty much right down the middle. It would appear there are those who believe this latest iteration has added some depth and emotional texture to the series. There are also those who believe when it comes to Predator movies, depth and emotional texture can fuck off. Now, I have watched this latest impersonation of what I believe to be a masterpiece from 1987. I've also watched and reviewed Prey, which was Trachtenberg's previous Predator efforts. Sincerely, I had every intention of sitting this one out. If you've been around the channel at all, you know I avoid pop culture and anything infected by it, like I avoid, well, I suppose anything infected. That's a pretty good rule of thumb. But then, completely unexpectedly, a childhood friend left a comment on my channel. And he wasn't one of those childhood friends you vaguely remember, like that kid Scott Kennedy from 6th grade who always looked like he kind of had a cold. He was one of those childhood friends you did sleepovers with and ate way too many tacos on a painfully rigid fold-out bed in the basement while you're watching Highlander on TV for the 43rd time.
There can be only one.
He was one of those childhood friends you're still friends with all these years later, and probably most relevant to this little video today, he's the kind of childhood friend that understands the impact these heartless corporations like Disney can have on memories that matter to people like me, because they matter to him too. And the second I saw what he wanted me to see, I knew I could not go gentle into that good night, folks. Not with this one. Now, for the record, as somebody with an attachment to the original, I do not think Badlands is a terrible movie. There are jokes thrown in at the end of every third line of dialogue. At times it feels very restrained and even childlike, which of course it would need to in order to snag the PG-13 rating. But under any other name, this would have been a definite recommend for me. For my niece and all of her friends at their next birthday party. Badlands is not a terrible movie, it is a terrible Predator movie. it is not a Predator movie. Predator 1987 blended action and horror and sci-fi perfectly. It had a powerhouse ensemble cast that was appropriate for the time period. And of course, that means our modern hyper-soft and hyper-sensitive audience members would have been passing out unconscious with all the complaining they had to do to the theater managers. The movie's direction and pacing built suspense and tension progressively and relentlessly from start to finish. And probably most relevant to today's little video, Stan Winston created one of cinema's most recognizable alien antagonists and one of Halloween's most popular costumes in one fell swoop, with the Predator's iconic, dreadlocked, mandibled monster. Along with its unique and intimidating appearance, the Predator's thermal vision and its cloaking abilities and its grimy digital tech, coupled with its stoic silence, made it the baddest fucking thing on the planet. While it was tearing its way through every member of Dutch's elite crew of assassins, one mercenary at a time, you believed it. You believed it, and you respected it, because while it was carrying out all the carnage, it was carrying itself like a man, by shutting the fuck up. Jump ahead nearly 40 years, and less than 10 minutes into Badlands, not only has all of the Predator's mystique and otherness been traded in for some fairly detailed, typical teenage dialogue, director Dan Trachtenberg has also given our interstellar Spartan a name. And I'm starting to wonder if I'm the only person that's noticed. Our Predator's name is... The actor playing him is Demetrius Koloa-Matangi from Auckland, New Zealand. Speaking in his own bloody accent, that is pronounced Dick. Can you imagine what it must have been like in the Disney writing room? Well, folks, we have the strongest, fastest, most well-equipped, elusive hunting entity in the cosmos completely at our disposal. So I was thinking, why don't we shrink him down from 7'2" to maybe Elle Fanning size? Then we can deform him so badly his entire family wants him euthanized before he can embarrass them in front of their intergalactic hunting buddies. Let's also cast him out of his uber-exclusive badass boys-only hunting lodge in the first 5 minutes of the movie so he's rendered a lonely, depressed victim hero marooned on planet Hanna-Barbera. To keep him company, you bang him up a CGI hairless pet dog, you bang him up a CGI pet sea cucumber, and what the hell? Jenkins, you give him scoliosis, Dandridge literally strap Dory the fucking fish to his bendy fucking back, so he's got a cop buddy tour guide to escort him from the opening act to the cutest hell climax. And to top everything off in true Walt Disney style, let's name him Cock and Balls. No? Too much? No problem. Dick it is then. This is the Predator. Now imagine dropping this next to it in 1987. And if you can wrap your head around that happening, try conceptualizing the fact there is a scene in Badlands portraying the moment that Dick earns the respect, whatever this thing is supposed to be. Hey Dick, how was your day? Fantastic, actually. Thanks for asking. I have finally earned the respect of Smeagol's disabled cousin Bud, and seeing as my stock is apparently trading so high right now, I'm going to see if Mrs. Puff from SpongeBob fancies a drink tomorrow after we watch The Princess Diaries. About 10 seconds after Dick's crashed his space bike into Hanna-Barbera land and he's had a few minutes to pull all of the Faduka thorns out of his ass, the dialogue immediately turns towards grieving and interpersonal relationships and self-reflection. And for the people who went to see this Predator movie assuming there would be a Predator starring in it, and for those of us who kept wanting to see angry dad burst through the furious clouds above with a fistful of sacred rules to be followed by Dick under pain of death, I guess it's a similar sensation to going through all of the pages on Pornhub and only finding ads for plumbers and pizza delivery guys. That one makes perfect sense in my head. It is crystal clear until the second I say it out loud. And then there's Dora, the Yautja expert. She announces, with a great deal of pride I might add, that she has studied Dick's species extensively. And we take her at her word because she's a robot, and I don't even know where to start examining how illogical it would be to program a robot to talk shit for attention. And yet, 30 seconds after announcing her expertise, she asks him how his mouth works. Now, I'd have assumed with her being an expert on his species, his mouth would have been the most obvious and prominent of his creature features. Probably the easiest to explain as well, considering it goes like this. I like Elle Fanning as an actor, and it's not like she had anything to do with developing her own character or writing her own dialogue. Having said that, the concept of strapping what's basically a coked-up, rambling Hollywood actress to Dick's back might make more sense coming from a coked-up, rambling Hollywood actress. I can't say I definitely recognize that kind of behavior from a handful of photographs. I mean, I only bounced in a strip joint for a few years during university. However, some of the complaints about this movie do revolve around Thea, who is one of the characters Fanning plays. Apparently, a handful of the more die-hard Predator fans, referred to affectionately in this article as sexist, racist, homophobic, far-right extremists, found the mere idea of programming a hyper-sophisticated, ultra-expensive android to behave like a coked-up, rambling Hollywood actress to be completely stupid. Especially when you ponder the actual motivation for programming neurotic attention deficit disorder tendencies into a robot that interacts exclusively with plants and animals and other robots. And then things get extra complicated when you consider the other robots are an army of Derek Zoolanders and a bitchy Mecha Karen. And once you've untangled that mess, you might start wondering why they doubled up on the Elle Fannings when they could have put a single Elle Fanning through a standard, straightforward change of heart story arc all by herself. Having said that, in recent memory, I can think of more than one capable and highly paid filmmaker to utilize doubling up as an effective storytelling tool, and everybody seemed to love it.
Of human salvation.
Other complaints about Badlands suggest over the course of this story, instead of becoming the independent, fierce, reliable warrior his brother sacrificed his own life to ensure he could become, Dick actually becomes reliant and dependent on everybody he encounters. He turns each of his new friends into his own personal support network, and that makes his journey about teamwork and community, which is very un-warrior-like. Having said that, in recent memory, I can think of more than one capable and highly paid filmmaker to utilize teamwork and community as an effective storytelling tool, and everyone seemed to love it. Whether you're a fan of Predator Badlands or whether you understand being a fan of it is stupid, I'm only kidding. The movie has left us with a few questions, such as, did they intentionally copy the ending of Avatar to make Dick into a Jake Sully? And if so, is that Disney's subtle but genius way of finally admitting Jake Sully has always been a dick? Does every single engineer in this Alien Predator universe fail Robotics 101 in Space College? Or did they design self-loathing robots who hate their creators on purpose, while engineers in all the other movie universes do just fine at getting their robots to stick to their job descriptions? I mean, look at R2-D2 from Star Wars. He is a highly efficient lightsaber flinger. Or what about the Beastie Boys robot from Intergalactic who really just wants to dance? The Badlands robots have very little self-worth, and they lack a fundamental understanding of some very basic principles.
We can be more than what they ask of us. What can we be? Sisters.
Somehow, this uber-intelligent robot can't understand being a super sophisticated, hyper-futuristic android is way more than sisters. Yes, it's true, sisters would have ejected from the same pair of testicles, and that is pretty flash. But super sophisticated, hyper-futuristic androids can do vacuuming and grilled cheeses, and probably diagnose problems with your testicles as well. Possibly even testicle problems caused by the androids themselves. And on an even more serious note, as a fan of the original Predator movie and as a super fan of the original Alien movies, the main question for me going forward is what happens now? Dick and his family's VFX were brilliant. Industrial Light and Magic found a perfect balance between CGI and practical effects, and it really worked well. And I'm not just saying that because I have a good friend that works at Industrial Light and Magic. Now, I did mention I have a friend that works at Industrial Light and Magic, so you'd think I was cool, so I do feel Dick's emoting was excessive, and to me, I thought they overhumanized him to the extent I stopped seeing him as an alien creature, and that pulled me out of the most important parts of the story. But he was very expressive, and he looked about as natural as you're going to get a guy like Dick looking. Now, I have tripped over that last line a few times, and you should hear some of the versions I've already deleted. I think the young me who watched the original Predator in the theater with big, bright, hopeful eyes would have walked out of this movie thinking it was childish. And even at that tender age, I think I would have found it heavy-handed too. For me, as a Predator fan, I couldn't relate to anybody in this movie. And that's strange if you consider I am a pretty typical Predator fan. I'm not a synth, I'm not a female, I'm mostly not a clumsy, weaponless victim hero with an ass full of Badogo thorns. I don't think I have called them by the same name twice, which doesn't matter because I'm making it all up. And now for the unfortunate controversial bullshit. With the exception of Dick's brother, his entire clan wanted him dead, and they all happen to be male. And of course, the alternative to his terrible family is a girl monster and a girl synth, and even Smeagol's disabled cousin is a girl. And Smeagol's disabled mom's parent happens to be a single mom. The female synths are the one in charge, and they report back to mother. All of the male synths happen to be identical, vacuous Zoolander morons who can't last 2 punches in a fight with an angry tree branch. And who knows what they're implying when his mother shows up in the post-credits scene? Is it perhaps her weekend? Do Disney Predators get divorced and share custody now? You might not have noticed some of these things. You might not have noticed any of these things, but a lot of people have. If Dick never spoke to anybody outside his clan, and if Thea acted like an android servant and not some strung-out sketchpad, and if Disney could have fought the urge to merch this movie up by baby Grooting half of the cast and 3/4 of the scenery, this story had some real potential. That is why I'm frustrated. That is why I've made this video. I just finally stopped crying last week after yet another violent but semi-expected soiling of the Alien name. The Alien Earth series reminded me things can always be worse than Romulus was. But Weyland-Yutani was featured so heavily in Predator Badlands, I am now assuming that Alien Dead Horse has another vigorous kicking coming to it, and that's going to put another lump in the back of my throat. At the end of the day, do I have to watch any of these movies? No, I don't. Am I going to? Of course I am. We all know these corporations have as much warmth and humanity as a Weyland-Yutani android. We also know that is never going to change. But we also know bashing these movies with our friends can be as satisfying as praising them, and sometimes even more so. Ultimately, whether we like the movie or not, sharing the experience with other like-minded movie fans provides us with an emotional release. And if we're very honest, probably a bit of validation as well. So, if you are one of the people who enjoyed Badlands and you're still here, my hat's off to you, and feel free to let me know where you disagree with me down in the comments section. After all, learning to see things from other people's perspectives is where you find half the fun. Unless you're planning on defending Alyssa Milano, of course. Trust me, that one worked out just fine the way it was. I don't believe in divorce, and some people's perspectives are, well, until next time, folks.